truth, the fact, the fine. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, roll, y'all. It's rolling Martin, yeah. Rolling with rolling now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's rolling Martin now.
All right, folks, this is a special edition of Roland Martin Unfiltered. Now, y'all know it's rare. It's rare that I will go live during the day. I'm normally live at 6 p.m. Eastern. But I had to go live to tell y'all what is happening today. At 3:30 p.m. today, House Republicans are going to force Democrats to vote on a resolution praising the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk. Now, of course, it was a week ago when Charlie Kirk was gunned down while speaking at a college campus in Utah. One person has been arrested in that. Ever since then, MAGA has been trying to lift Charlie Kirk up as a martyr. Fox News has done a special. Sinclair Television Group announced they're going to be doing a special on Charlie Kirk's life and legacy tomorrow, airing at the same time where Jimmy Kimmel normally airs. And they have actually pulled Jimmy Kimmel, forced ABC News to pull Jimmy Kimmel off the air, and they are also demanding that Jimmy Kimmel personally apologize to Kirk's family and give a donation to Turning Point USA. You had one Republican who literally went on the floor during a committee yesterday who said that if Charlie Kirk lived during the times of Jesus, he would have been the 13th disciple. It's about martyrdom. So that's what this is all about. So let me set this up for you, okay? So normally, when the House takes an action, normally it's a moment of silence. Let me say that again. When former members pass away, no resolution, moment of silence. Congressman Charlie Rangel, founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, passed away earlier this year. No resolution, moment of silence. Jerry Conley, moment of silence. Sylvester Turner, moment of silence. Okay? The congressman from Arizona, moment of silence. Okay, so let me read for y'all this resolution so you can understand what's going on and what's not in this resolution. And let me be perfectly clear. I don't have a problem with Republicans condemning murder. I have no problem condemning that. But I don't recall a resolution for the school shooting that happened on the same day in Colorado. I don't recall a resolution for the former Minnesota House Speaker who was shot and killed by a Trump supporter and her husband, and 2 other people were shot. No resolution came from the House Republicans. So let me read this for you, okay? Y'all check this out, okay? This is House Resolution 719, honoring the life and legacy of Charlie James Kirk. And you see all of these members that have signed on to this. These are all Republicans. These are all Republicans in the House. Resolution honoring the life and legacy of Charlie James Kirk. Whereas Charlie James Kirk, born October 14th, 1993, was a courageous American patriot whose life was tragically and unjustly cut short in an act of political violence on September 10th, 2025 at Utah Valley University. Whereas Charlie Kirk was a devoted Christian who boldly lived out his faith with conviction, courage, and compassion. Whereas Charlie Kirk was a dedicated husband to his beloved wife, Erica Kirk, and a loving father to their daughter and son, exemplifying the virtues of faith, fidelity, and fatherhood. Whereas Charlie Kirk was a fierce defender of the American founding and its timeless principles of life, liberty, limited government, and individual responsibility. Whereas Charlie Kirk, at 18 years old, founded Turning Point USA in 2012, a student movement with the mission to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote the principles of fiscal responsibility, free markets, and limited government. Whereas Charlie Kirk became one of the most prominent voices in America, engaging in respectful civil discourse across college campuses, media platforms, and national forums, always seeking to elevate truth, foster understanding, and strengthen the republic. Whereas Charlie Kirk personified the values of the First Amendment, exercising his God-given right to speak freely, challenged prevailing narratives, and did so with honor, courage, and respect for his fellow Americans. Whereas Charlie Kirk's commitment to civil discussion and debate stood as a model for young Americans across the political spectrum, and he worked tirelessly to promote unity without compromising on conviction. Whereas the assassination of Charlie Kirk was not only a heinous act of violence, but a sobering reminder of the growing threat posed by political extremism and hatred in our society. Whereas such acts of politically motivated violence are antithetical to the principles of a free republic, in which differences of opinion are to be debated, not silenced, with civility, reason, and mutual respect. Whereas the rise in targeted violence against individuals for their political beliefs undermines the very fabric of our constitutional democracy and chills the free exchange of ideas essential to a healthy civic society. Whereas leaders at every level, government, education, media, and beyond, must stand united in unequivocal condemnation of political violence, regardless of the ideology. Whereas the tragic loss of Charlie Kirk must not be allowed to deepen the divides in our nation, but instead serve as a turning point to recommit ourselves to better angels, and to the timeless American principles of liberty, government governed by truth, and the virtues of peaceful dialogue. And whereas Charlie Kirk would not have us respond to his death with despair, but rather with renewed purpose to speak truth with courage, to stand firm in faith, to seek unity while standing firm in principle, and to serve as living reminders of the values he championed, faith, family, and freedom. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the House of Representatives condemns in the strongest possible terms the assassination of Charlie James Kirk and all forms of political violence, commends and honors the dedicated law enforcement and emergency personnel for their tireless efforts in finding the suspect responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and urges the administration of swift justice to the suspect. Extends its deepest condolences and sympathies to Charlie Kirk's family, including his wife, Erica, and their two young children, and prays for comfort, peace, and healing in this time of unspeakable loss. Honors the life, leadership, and legacy of Charlie Kirk, whose steadfast dedication to the Constitution, civil discourse, and biblical truth inspired a generation to cherish and defend the blessings of liberty, and calls upon all Americans, regardless of race, party affiliation, or creed, to reject political violence, recommit to respectful debate, uphold American values, and respect one another as fellow Americans. That reads the resolution. Lauren Victoria Burke, founder of Black Virginia News, joins me right now. She's been on Capitol Hill talking to members. And Lauren, Democrat leadership, they're going to vote for this?
Yes, they are. They are because they had a roughly about a 2-hour meeting today in which one of the big issues that came up was a concern about the trans community, which of course is valid given the obsession that the Republican Party has against the trans community, which we're seeing in the race in Virginia with regard to Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears. She's made that the only issue in the race, a race around, who uses what bathroom. At any rate, one of the members who got up, who is trans in the Democratic caucus, Sarah McBride of Delaware, made the case that she is likely to vote yes on the Kirk resolution because of the concerns on the threats to the community. And of course, other members have brought up the fact that it really doesn't make any difference what anyone votes one way or the other. The pressure on all of these minority communities is huge. It's tremendous. Now, I don't know what's going on in the mind of the leadership, however. I did ask Leader Jeffries as he left the caucus meeting this morning about 45 minutes ago that, I asked him, are you voting yes? He repeated again and again that a statement would be coming out shortly. Hopefully that statement will define exactly why it is the leadership is voting yes for this resolution. As you can see, it is worded in such a way that it is very easy to message against the Democrats with those statements, because now, of course, the Republicans will argue you voted against the resolution that codifies, statements against political violence. Of course, the overhanging problem here is And of course, nobody has any problem with stating that they're against political violence, stating that what happened to Charlie Kirk was terrible and awful and violent. That's not the issue. The issue is who Charlie Kirk was, what his statements were, which were quite racist quite often. And for the Black Caucus members, this has a particular feature because, of course, he's made several negative statements against Black women, and very specifically, the top of Black women, you know, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Michelle Obama, et cetera, and so on.
Well,
So,
not only that, he said things about Democratic House members,
right.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, and others.
Right. And
So
you know,
you want them voting on a resolution that praises Charlie Kirk and all these things he was: a Christian, a husband, a patriot, all things founding Turning Point USA, but it's devoid of his very attacks on the people who are in the House.
right. And the fact that those statements are, of course, not in the resolution, of course, but those statements have not been repeated also by legacy media, because as you know, right now we're having a rapid takeover, really, of the right of legacy media. That includes CBS and ABC. So it is actually hard to hear some of the actual words of Charlie Kirk that have been stated over the last, decade, really. And so, of course, him having a daily show, all anyone would actually need to do is quote some of those statements as a reason to vote against this resolution. So it is surprising to hear, particularly from the leadership, led by one of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus, Hakeem Jeffries, that he will be voting yes on the resolution, even with the understanding that he is a leader that has to represent over 200 Democrats. But he really actually doesn't just have to represent Democrats. I asked him, was he whipping this vote? He's not whipping the vote, meaning that the members are free to vote any way they want. The leadership is not telling them that they have to vote yes or no. But clearly, when you have a leadership bloc voting yes, that indicates a certain pressure to vote a certain way.
And see, here's my deal here. Okay, so if you're Leader Jeffries, if you're the Democratic leadership, how about this here? How about today you put on the floor a resolution for this person? How about you put a resolution on the floor for former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman? How about you do that? How about you say, okay, Republicans, since you want to vote on resolutions regarding political violence, how about we put a resolution on the floor condemning the assassination of Melissa Hortman, her husband, and the shooting deaths of two other people? To me, if Democrats, if you want to sit here and talk about fairness, how about you do that? How about you if you're Democrats, how about from now on, you put on the floor a House resolution for every single school shooting? How about that?
Well, that is, I would say, very likely to take place should they get control in January 2027.
No. Here's my whole point. Lauren, they don't have to wait to January till then. They don't have to wait. What I'm saying is this here. If I'm Jeffries or I'm a member, I'm putting the resolution on the floor and saying, okay, Republicans, since y'all want us to vote on a Charlie Kirk resolution, we're going to put a resolution on the floor for Melissa Hortman, and let's see how many of y'all sign up as co-sponsors. And let's see if you even allow the vote. We're going to put a resolution on the floor for every single school shooting. To me, that's how they should be responding.
Yeah, the problem with this party, and it continues, they have no general messaging strategy to combat these types of messaging attacks that go general, that go broad, that go comprehensive, and that go to the fact that, of course, the right is now taking over some pretty major pieces of legacy media, and of course, eliminating and really actually erasing a lot of the statements of Charlie Kirk. And if it wasn't for the fact that we have social media and YouTube, we probably wouldn't hear a lot of these statements, because it's social media and YouTube where you see a lot of the rolling of the tape of the statements of Charlie Kirk, which should make this resolution extremely questionable for any Democrat, particularly Black Democrats. Because the Democratic Party is failing at that messaging over and over and over again, and allowing the Republicans to run the table, which is what they did this week. And I get that they're talking about the CR. I get that the government is likely to shut down. Everybody understands that. But what has happened is the Republicans have run the table on the messaging, completely run the table, been allowed to say whatever they want without any resistance or filling of the box in the direction, in the opposite direction from the Democratic Party. That is a huge, huge continuing problem that for some reason never gets fixed on the left. And so the Republicans are allowed to message that somehow Charlie Kirk was this perfect person who never said anything that was racist or actually, interestingly enough, somebody had just mentioned to me that there was an anti-Semitic part of his language. I have not heard that yet, but the point is racism and white supremacy is all over a lot of the things that he has said over the years. And to ask the Black Democrats to vote for this is one would think a bridge too far. We are going to find out at 3:30 how far that bridge is. There are some hard no's in the Black caucus. There are some people who are going to vote present. And I suspect there are going to be some people who vote yes. So this is going to be an extremely interesting vote a week before CBC week and a expanded discussion on the state of play for Black America in this country.
You know, a lot of people, I've seen this on social media, a lot of people have been talking about when Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth, when he stood before these soldiers and they said, how shameful or how difficult was it for Black soldiers, knowing full well the kind of stuff that Charlie Kirk said about Black people, they have to listen to Pete Hegseth do this.
I'd also be remiss if I did not acknowledge why that flag is at half staff. We lost an incredible American today, a dear friend of mine. If you knew him, you love him. His name is Charlie Kirk. Taken by an assassin's bullet. Unfathomable. The only assurance I can take is that I know he is with his Lord and Savior right now. He has heard the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant," as I know many of you will hear.
Again, Lauren, people need to understand. And let's be real clear. Can you condemn murder? Absolutely.
Right.
Can we condemn what took place a week ago? 100%. That was shameful. It was despicable. That is not how you respond in a civil society.
Right.
That's what you can do. You can say prayers for his wife, prayers for his children, and then no person should be gunned down.
Right.
On a university campus.
Right.
But while doing that, you could also criticize what was said, what was actually said by Charlie Kirk, and the things that he specifically said about African Americans and Black leadership and others as well. And so what you're seeing, again, this is an effort. This is an effort, and it's plain as day. They want to create a martyr. When you have Glenn Beck saying, oh, he was a civil rights leader. When you have, again, people saying, oh, my goodness, he was on the same level as Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You're like, give me a break. But this is what what the right is doing. And the crazy thing is, Karl Rove wrote about it in the Wall Street Journal when he was like, who is they? He's like, they killed Charlie Kirk. He was like, who the hell is they? Right. This is all an effort. This is the latest effort to say, we're going to create a martyr that we can now try to drive the vote next year. That's what's going on here.
I actually think, too, there's another level to that, Roland, which is they're trying to create an argument that if your speech does
lives on the line, protect them tonight, tomorrow night, next week, in the
if your speech does not conform with their speech. So what this resolution sets up is the argument of, see, the Democrats can't even vote to be against political violence. See, they're not on the same page as everybody else. They're not against political violence because they won't even vote against it with regard to Charlie Kirk. You evoke the name of Jesus and the Lord and all this other stuff. And then to Pam Bondi's statement the other day, the Attorney General, we can then condemn you and make an argument that this is somehow hate speech that the Democratic Party is in favor of. I think they're trying to wedge the Democratic Party into a position of arguing that, they're pro-violence. Now, this is incredible coming from the group whose supporters attacked the U.S. Capitol on Jan 6th, 2021. This is incredible coming from the group who, if you look at some of this political violence, the Josh Shapiro incident, the attempted kidnapping of the governor of Michigan, all of that was Trump supporters. So they're trying to run the table on the argument that it is the Democrats that are into violence. The Democrats have not messaged against that effectively at all. They've said almost absolutely nothing, which is incredible. So I cannot wait to see the statement from Leader Jeffries and the two other leaders of the Democratic Party, Rep. Clark and Rep. Aguilar, because I hope it would explain, and you know what they say in politics, if you're explaining, you're losing. It should not be difficult, given what we know about Charlie Kirk's public statements, to say certain things and to say, of course, that what happened to him was disgusting. I do think, okay, in fairness, what happened was, in fact, disgusting. It was on video. It was extremely graphic and violent. And so that is what I think is wedging some of these members. But when you go over the statements of Charlie Kirk as a person and what he stood for, this becomes highly problematic, particularly for the CBC.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, I think there are a lot of folks with the base gonna be pissed off,
Right.
and I'm gonna say this, to your point, with Democrats leadership supporting this, this is part of the deal. They're always talking about the frontliners, the frontliners, the frontliners. Okay. And that's these Democrats who are in, toss-up districts, purple districts, or whatever the hell. Republicans don't give a damn about their frontliners. Their whole deal is we're going to drive forward our agenda, and we don't give a damn. Now, we saw some of them, pushing them to do certain things when it came to the vote regarding Medicaid, things along those lines. And in fact, the DCCC put this out right here, which was a graphic of 2026 districts in play. But you look at these names right here. Bottom line is these folks, they're going to go along to get along. That's what they're going to do. And I'm telling you right now, there are going to be some folks on the Democratic side who's going to say, you know what? This is a bridge too far for some of these Democrats. And they're going to get opponents in the primary. And you know what? They should. I've always said point blank that nobody owns a seat. Nobody is entitled to a seat. They should run. And if people run against them, I got no problem with it, because it would be an act of cowardice to bend the knee. And again, to vote on a resolution with this language that is devoid of any of the heinous things that Charlie Kirk said. But more importantly, and I will say this more importantly, you're going to vote on this resolution, but there was no resolution after two people were gunned down. No, four were gunned down in Minnesota. Two were murdered, and one of them, the former Speaker of the Minnesota House. And again, Democrats should drop a resolution and force the Republicans to either not let it go to the floor or force a vote every time there's a school shooting as well. This is weakness by the Democratic Party.
I think it also sends a message to the base whose feelings the Democratic Party actually cares about. There are certainly obviously a lot of constituencies under the umbrella of the Democratic Party. Black voters, though, bring home the wins for this party in a lot of places in this country. And so the question is going to become, why was it that the concerns of Black constituents and a group of people in this country who are under siege by the federal government right now in every way, shape, or form, from them trying to remove history, from them firing Black officials who are overly qualified in the case of the Joint Chiefs of Staff chair, that question of what this party is willing to do and not do to protect African Americans, who is a core part of their base, that question has to be answered at some point. It's certainly not answered in this moment if this vote goes down the way it would appear to be going down.
All right. Well, it's going to be at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. We will have more on this on Roland Martin Unfiltered at 6 p.m. Eastern. Lauren, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks. Again, listen, we're going to cover these stories. And again, this is what I want to see. I want to see Democrats have the guts to put a resolution on the floor condemning what took place in Minnesota. And in fact, if I'm correct, one second, GOP. 1 second. Remember when we had the shooting in Buffalo? 10 black people were killed in Buffalo. Remember that? Y'all remember that? Then Congressman Jamal Bowman put forth a resolution condemning white supremacy. And guess what? Republican Party voted against it. I just want y'all to know what we're dealing with here. Folks, I'm going to see y'all at 6 p.m. Eastern on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Sun Network. Holla!